Hello everyone, this is Landscapes Class 4 in the Masterclass series, Taking It Up a Notch. And the subtitle for this day's class is Black Mask, White Brush. And today I'm going to show you a technique that I learned from Sean Bagshaw, as well as a guy that he respects greatly, Tony Kuiper. These are two great teachers that have used this tool extensively to make selective edits in a photo. You know, you start out in Lightroom with the universal type of an edit, and then you want to get more selective with your edits as you go. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in and show you how this works. Okay, so obviously you start out in Lightroom in your raw editor, and I put a few minor adjustments in here. Just to kind of bring this photo up to a place that I can really start editing. I like to add a little blue saturation from the calibration slider to start bringing those colors up and brightness up a little bit. I typically will always check this, and with enable profile connect corrections, I usually will try it and see if I like it. In this case I do, so I'm leaving it on there. Detail, I do put some sharpening in there. I'll take the radius down to 0.5 well, if you hold down the Option key, you can move this mask back and forth and actually build yourself a sharpening mask. And then you can, put the amount of sharpening you want into the photo. And I always do that as kind of a basis for getting started. And in here, I've just made some minor adjustments to bring up brightness in the shadows and so forth. But the heavy lifting is going to be done inside Photoshop. So we're going to go right over to Photoshop, and I'll show you how this technique works that Sean Bagshaw instructs. Okay, so the way to think about this is we're going to work on one thing at a time. And the way these professional editors work is they let a question guide their way through editing. And that question is, what does this photo need next? So you finish that particular thing you're fixing, and then you ask the same question again. And you just keep asking that question, what does this photo need next, until the answer is nothing, and then you're done. It isn't. So let's get started. I'm going to do 3 adjustments to this photo. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the shadows in these areas in here, because I don't like to have too much black, although a little black is fine. But I'm going to bring up the shadows a little bit. So I'm going to go up to Adobe Camera Raw here in the TK7 panel, or a more traditional way is just to go up here to Filter Camera Raw. Okay, but I'm going to use this one just because for me it's easier. Okay, so once we bring up Camera Raw, I'm looking at this area right down here. I have a little bit of black clipping, which is fine. If you keep these checked on your histogram, it'll show you where you're clipping. Black clipping here is not as big a problem as clipping on this side, so I watch both of them, but a little bit of black clipping is fine. I'm going to pull the shadows up, and what I'm doing is I'm looking right here. And I'm very selectively looking right here. I don't care what happens anywhere else in the photo, and you'll see why in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the shadows a little bit, get some more detail back in there. And you can also pull up the blacks a little bit if you want to put a little bit more life into your shadows. You can pull up the blacks and do that as well. Okay, so I'm kind of going to pull it up in there. And I might even add a little blue. That sounds odd, I know, but the shadows are bluer, the highlights are yellower. So again, I'm just going to be adjusting these areas in here. I bring up those shadows a tad more. What's nice about it is this is like a color palette for painting, where you're mixing up the adjustment you're going to make before you actually apply it. So I'm going to apply it, but I'm going to apply it to the whole photo because this is Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, so now the whole photo is adjusted. If I turn it off, you'll see where I started and where I am now. Okay, but I just want it in these areas. I don't want it up here in the sky. I don't want it all over. So what I'm going to do, and this is the key to it, this is the part you need to really remember. You come down to the Add Layer Mask button, and you hold down your Option key on a Mac, or your Control key, I believe it is, on a PC. And if you click that, you get a black mask up. And that black mask has basically covered or concealed the adjustments that I made. Okay, black conceals, white reveals. So black is concealing that adjustment. We're not seeing any of it, but I do want it to be showing up in here. So how do I do that? I go up and get a white brush. It's on Brush, White, 100% opacity, and then you can use your right and left bracket keys to make your brush larger and smaller. Make sure you're on a soft round brush too, by the way, because you want a soft edge. And when you're ready to go, you just start painting it selectively. That white brush, you start painting into the areas where you want to bring up that detail. And if you want to do it in a slower fashion, you can you can adjust your opacity up here to put less down at one time. I tend to like to put the whole adjustment in that I did in Adobe Camera Raw, and then I come back in with the opacity slider over here, and I dial it back to 0, I'll go up to 100, and then I kind of find that sweet spot where I really like the look. And for me, it's going to be up at 100% because, like I say, I like the original thing that I did. But you'll see that the adjustment now has only gone in where the white is. Okay, so that's a zone adjustment, a selective adjustment where you're just working on part of the photo. Okay, I'm going to do just 3 of these to illustrate this. So let's go to the next one. I'm going to ask the question, okay, what do I think this photo needs next? And in my view, this sky needs a little more life up here. So I'm going to go into Adobe Camera Raw again. And I'm going to pull on the dehaze slider to the right and watch that sky. Now all I'm doing is looking at the sky. I'm not looking anywhere else, just the sky. And I'm putting some more drama in there. I'm going to add some color, vibrance, and I'm going to add a little bit more saturation. I might even pull up these sliders a little bit. Again, I'm just looking at colors in the sky. I don't care what happens down here because it's not going to be applied there with this black mask white brush technique. Okay, and I kind of like those colors that I'm getting in the sky, although I think my blue's getting a little strong for my taste. So I'm going to come down to Color Mixer, and I'm going to go to Saturation. I'm going to pull back on the blue saturation a little bit just to make it more Robin Ziggy, somewhere in there. And I might push up the yellows and the oranges a little bit, just to get a little bit more pop out of those colors, and maybe even some red. I like that right in there. Okay, so now you can see I've applied these color changes to the sky, and also I've done some dehazing, some vibrance, a little bit of saturation, a little bit of tint, a little bit of temperature. I'm going to hit OK. Now again, it's going to adjust it down here as well. It's going to adjust the whole photo. So if I turn off this button, you'll see where I started and where we're ending up with the sky. Okay, but I just want it in the sky. So what do? We come down to the Add Layer Mask button. You hold down the Option key on a Mac, Control on a PC. You put a black mask on there, which negates the adjustment I just made, but we can bring it back in selectively. So we're going to take a white brush again. Just make sure it's on white, 100%. Get the size you want. Make sure it's on a soft round brush, and then you're just going to paint in the adjustment. And because I have a soft brush, you won't really see the edge of where I'm painting. But if I had a problem with, let's say I had an issue with, you're seeing a little bit of an edge from where you're painting. Okay, what you can do is you can double click on the mask, any mask, and you can feather the mask even more by just pulling it. It'll make this edge even softer, so that the transition is less noticeable. Okay, so that's the second adjustment, and we're going to do one more. We're going to pull up the brightness on these flowers. Now this is a very selective adjustment. We're going to use the same system altogether. So I'm going to go to a new layer, and I'm going to go to Adobe Camera Raw, and I'm going to add them. All I'm going to do is look at the flowers now. That's where my gaze is going. I'm not going to look at anything else, and I'm just going to adjust the flowers for brightness and color, and put maybe some vibrance and saturation in there, just to make those flowers kind of pop. Even add a little dehaze just for contrast, a little bit more brightness. Okay, now you can see I'm starting to blow out the sky, but again, I'm not interested in what's going on anywhere else about the flowers. I'm going to put a little bit more brightness in there, I think. Let's see. Maybe pull up the exposure a little bit more. I want those yellow flowers to be very noticeable and friendly and kind and nice to look at. Okay, so I'm going to hit that. And again, it's a universal adjustment, and you don't want it everywhere because now it's kind of messed up your photo. Here's where I started. Okay, and I've taken the flowers up a little bit. I may not have taken them enough, but anyway, we're going to just show this to demonstrate. So again, we want a selective edit, so I'm going to do an option, click on the add layer mask, white brush again, and we're going to paint at 100% on a soft edge. We're going to make the brush size about the size of the flowers, and we're just going to click through the flowers, and we're going to bring some more life into those flowers. Now you probably don't want too large of a brush when you're doing this because you'll start painting the grass as well with that yellow color and that brightness, which you probably don't want to do. But you can see how these flowers are starting to come forward a little bit, which is nice because they're nice to look at. They're a nice part of the photo. I think these dune sunflowers are really cool. I love them since I moved down here. I never get tired of seeing them. Walking into the beaches and you see these beautiful little things greeting you. And they're growing out of the sand. They're pretty rugged little things. And I'll put some in there. I think I've got most of them. Okay, so now you can see where the white dots are, where it painted that white onto the mask with the mask selected. It's added that adjustment into the flowers, but the black is blocking it everywhere else. So now you've got a very selective adjustment on these things. And you also, remember, you always have ultimate control with the opacity slider. I can dial it back to 0, or I can go up to 100, or anything in between. I sort of always usually end up around 50 to 60% because I do a little bit too much initially, and then it gets to be too much. So I'm dialing it back just a bit. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to stop there. There's more I can do, like getting rid of this front and rear, which is driving me crazy, but that's a whole other editing system. This is basically about the black mask white brush technique for brushing in selective edits into your photo. As you're asking that question, what does this photo need next? Use the black mask with the white brush to selectively put in those things you're wanting to adjust. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining in for Landscape 4. I'll be producing Landscape 5 here very shortly, so we'll have 5 classes up for people to view, and I hope this was interesting and will be useful in your own editing. And it's nice that we can keep in touch during COVID times this way and still share information. So have a great day, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.